Today on Locked On Red Wings, Showtime is staying in Hockeytown, and Jacob Trouba could be next. Also, we're going to recap rounds 2 through 7 of the NHL draft.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. I'm a former broadcast producer for 97.1 The Ticket, where Scotty's a host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a freelance journalist for the Detroit News. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As the playoffs wind down or have wound down, the sports stop sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone, every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. Scotty, this is our second attempt to record this episode because at first we were like, we might not be getting the number with Patrick Kane today, and then we're 20 minutes in and Elliot Friedman drops the salary. So here we are, attempt number 2. Probably be a little bit more concise. I hope it'll be a little bit more concise now that we've had a practice run, a trial run on this very jam-packed episode. We got qualifying offers. We got the Patrick Kane extension. We got Jacob Trouba to Detroit, what seemed like a sure thing, rumors, and also rounds 2 through 7, as well as, hey, free agency starts today. Keep an eye out for that. Let's start with the qualifying offers before we get to Kane, because the qualifying offers is a really short conversation, but it is noteworthy. The Red Wings extended qualifying offers to Moritz Seider, Lucas Raymond, Joe Veleno, and Jonathan Berggren. Basically, for your purposes listening, all a qualifying offer is a minimum contract offer you have to give a restricted free agent to then retain your exclusive negotiating rights with that player. So this is not a contract that Seider or Raymond are going to be signing. It's probably not a contract that Veleno or Berggren are going to be signing because they have arbitration rights. So they can then go to arbitration and negotiate a higher contract and a higher salary. So that's why it's a short conversation, because these qualifying offers really don't carry a lot of weight other than we want to keep these players under our control. So here is their minimum offer we have to give them by the deadline today.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even really news, which is why we're just throwing it in here at the beginning. This was always going to happen. They were always going to get offers. It does not move the needle or change anything about their future or their current situations with the team. So,
unless, of course, you don't get a qualifying offer, which is
Correct.
The case with Jared McIsaac, which is a massive bummer because he is somebody who I had a lot of hope for coming for the Detroit Red Wings D-core, but his development was hampered with injuries. And then partway through the season, he got traded at the AHL level. He got traded to another AHL team, I believe the Providence Bruins. I'd have to double check on that one. But he wasn't getting ice time with the Grand Rapids Griffins because a lot of younger prospects came up and pushed him out. And so when the lack of qualifying offer happened, it was not a surprise, because if you're getting traded away from the Detroit Red Wings farm club to a team where you can get the ice time, the writing's pretty much on the wall. So we got that confirmation. Nothing but the best for Jared McIsaac. I hope he gets another opportunity. Hope he proves Red Wings, all the Red Wings wrong, all the organization wrong, and he makes it to the NHL, because he's somebody who I liked a lot of his game before, the injuries.
Yeah, no, not a surprise, but obviously wish him the best, because, I think there's still a path for him going forward. He'll get a job somewhere. So, still rooting for him.
Same, Jared. Same. Scotty, let's talk about Patrick Kane. Now, we officially got the word that he is signing with Detroit on a 1-year deal with a $4 million base that carries $2.5 million in performance bonuses. What is your first reaction when you hear all of that?
Yeah, well, there's a lot to break down there, certainly. We can get into the bonuses and whatnot here in a second, but I think my initial reaction is the term, right? That is genuinely surprising to me, like shocking, I would say. I've been very vocal about how I think Kane was looking for term this free agency, and that was going to be his biggest negotiating chip, and it was going to be one of the biggest factors in his decision. So the fact that he is not only staying in Detroit, if you would have asked me 2 days ago, if you would have asked me 24 hours ago, what would it take to get Kane to stay in Hockeytown? It would be, okay, well, if he stays here, it's going to be because we offered him a multi-year deal. I am genuinely stunned that he is here on another 1-year deal. Again, we can get into the money and the contract and kind of break down the different bonuses and whatnot, because some of them are like pretty much layups. We'll get into all of that in a second. But I think the biggest thing that jumped out at me was just the fact that he stayed in Detroit for a year. And I think that probably is an indication of market, of people either A, not willing to go as high AAV wise and bonus wise as the Wings were, giving him a lot of bonus. I think that's the most you can give bonus money wise is on a 1 year is $2.5 million. So like getting a lot in bonuses, a lot in a 1-year deal money wise, or nobody was willing to give him multi-years, or a combination of both.
Yeah. I think then this is all speculation, right? I do like that theory. I think that theory, I would be shocked the market wasn't as strong for him, because we had gotten so many reports, especially like New York. He's from New York, right? Or Buffalo. He's from New York State, at least. And that he may want to go home. And I know Vegas was reportedly making a push as well, because Vegas just is in on every
got one
veteran
earlier
superstar.
Sunday we even got one earlier Sunday that like the Habs were going to go all in.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I don't know where that came from. I'm not sure why he would go there either, but like, okay, like, I mean, there have been a lot of, so I can't imagine that the market was so bad AAV wise that he was just like, oh, like I'm back. But I do think this is unprecedented territory still, right? Even with him proving that he can still be a close to a point a game player like he was last year, this is still a guy in, getting up there in years, in his late 30s, that is coming off of a serious hip surgery and injury. Like it still probably maybe drove people away at the end of the day from giving him, 2+ years. So, yeah, I think this is a huge win for the Wings. I guess was my overall reaction.
It is.
Getting Kane back and on a 1-year deal, I think is a really, really, really perfect honestly perfect outcome for the Detroit Red Wings.
Well, I think you did touch upon something right there too, when you talk about like maybe there's still some trepidation, and we talked about this a little bit a couple of weeks ago. Maybe there's still some trepidation by front offices about the sturdiness of that hip, right? We saw 50 games of Patrick Kane, 47 points, a point per game. Tremendous. Absolute slam dunk, especially at $4 million base salary. Again, we'll talk segment 2 about the implications of that, because the bonus money makes it a little bit more complicated, and we'll break that all down to the best of our ability. But, I wondered too back then if there was some trepidation, and that's why some of the reports we had been hearing were the way that they were. And this, I'm not going to say confirms it, because I don't know. I'm just speculating. But maybe the contracts he was getting, as you were saying, even if it was a max 2-year deal, isn't worth uprooting your entire family again when you can just stay in Detroit for a 1-year deal, right? Like, that's one thing he kept talking about. He didn't want to move his family all over the place. And he wanted to be with a team that had a bright future and had a chance at winning. So I think that's like two things can be true at the same time, right? Where it's like a 1-year deal here still allows him to stay put here. And maybe that was because he was only getting like max 2-year deals elsewhere. And on top of that, he does view Detroit, because there were a lot of reports for a long time that he still wanted to return to Detroit, just at the right number, because he saw Detroit as an upcoming team. And he has friends here. Like, he played youth here in Michigan. That Michigan connection always comes back strong. He's friends with Alex DeBrincat. There were reports that he was very tight-knit with a lot of guys in the locker room. So I think that there's a huge fit here, especially the Red Wings need a top 6 forward who's capable of scoring at a point-per-game pace and is a huge boon on the power play. Like, we haven't even gotten into the on-ice benefits, because it kind of goes without saying, right? We've all seen what Patrick Kane can do this season. But it's just, there's so many, it's so weird that he only got a 1-year deal that we're spending so much time speculating on why that could be. Another thing, too, is like, again, I just said he always had said, at least not he had always said, but the reports always indicated that he did like Detroit and wanted to stay here if it made sense. Well, it's also possible he was using the idea of hitting free agent as an opportunity to then, entice the Red Wings to give him a better offer. Because that's completely okay. That's how you play the game of negotiating a new contract, right? You use it as leverage. So I think that's possibility too. But this is all speculation. We won't know, and we may never know truly. But we won't know until insiders start reporting how things played out on the Red Wings and Patrick Kane's side of things. But for now, Patrick Kane is a Red Wing, a 1-year deal, $4 million in bonus or at base pay, and 2.5 in potential bonuses. And we'll talk and break that down in segment 2 before talking about Jacob Trouba, and then rounds 2 through 7 of the draft. This is a jam-packed episode of Locked On Red Wings, so stay tuned. Got to talk to you guys today about FanDuel. Not a lot of sports going on these days, just baseball right now, and that's what's great about summer and America's pastime is it's just baseball, man. You get to look forward to that every single night, unless your team's not doing so hot, but I don't want to further Scotty's pain right now by talking about the team that shall not be named. But FanDuel, regardless, lets you keep the sports going whenever you want. All you got to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime you're in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonuses daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty, it's a $4 million base salary for that 1 year, but there's $2.5 million in bonuses. What the hell does that mean?
It's a lot. It's a lot of bonuses, is what that means. Yeah. So like the initial. Well, I mean, do you want to break down all the bonuses? I think that's probably.
Do you have it up? I have it up.
Important place to start. Yeah, I can pull it up here. So essentially, it's a $4 million base salary. He gets $1.5 million if he plays 10 games. So, barring a season-ending injury at like the beginning of the season or before the season starts or anything like that, he'll hit that pretty easily. Then he gets $250K at 60 games, $500K if the Wings make the playoffs, and then another $250K if the Wings make the playoffs and Kane scores 60 points. All of that can add up to a possible $6.5 million. And again, the initial base will be 4. So bonuses, they will hit the salary cap when they are achieved. However, you can really get super finicky with how you pay bonuses and how they affect the cap, right? Like they can carry over into next year if you don't have enough room for them, and you have to pay a little bit of a tax on them or whatever. But like that's really like not too much of an issue or something that prevents teams from doing it. So really the biggest thing is going to be that $4 million. And then obviously that $1.5 million at 10 games is so likely to be hit that that's probably the range that you're looking at. And then once you hit that, it's just the difference between 5.5 and anywhere from 5.5 to 6.5 mil. So that is probably the price range that you are looking at for the cap hit against Kaner here on a 1-year deal. And I have no issue with it whatsoever. I mean, we were talking in the episode, the lost episode, that will never see the light of day because all the information came out when we were 20 minutes into a 30-minute show, we were talking about the potential salary being around $5.5 million. And as long as it wasn't, 7, 8, 9 mil or anything like that, that we were going to be pretty fine with whatever it was. And this looks like it's going to be around 5.5 to 6.5 mil. So this is kind of in the range that we were expecting. No surprise. And the fact that it's a 1-year deal really does not makes it even more, even if you think, oh, like it's a little bit of an overpay, it's a little steep for Kane. It's a 1-year deal, and he was almost a point a game for this organization last year. I really see nothing wrong with this.
Yeah, and I mean, we talked a lot about how the Jake Wallman trade is an example of like really bad asset management. I would argue this is an example of really great asset management because this it's a win-win for both parties here. And here's the most important part that I don't want to get lost on people. The base pay of $4 million is what affects the cap July 1st tomorrow. So as of right now, you're only paying Patrick Kane $4 million. That's it. That's all that's going to go on the cap. That is
when
a
free agency
bargain.
opens, that's the cap. And then, once he hits those bonuses, then next year, that'll be what affects.
And we worry about that later. And that's exactly. Emily Kaplan reported that he could easily make double his next contract. His last contract was 2.75 with the Red Wings. So you were thinking 5.5. So what Steve Yzerman did is, okay, base salary, you come in a little bit less, a little bit of a discount, so we can make some moves to make this team better.
But once you hit 10 games played, your AAV's $5.5 million.
Right. But here's the thing to note is you're allowed to go over the salary cap up to 7.5% on performance bonuses. That's $6.6 million. Right. So essentially, you get $6.6 million in performance bonus money every so that extra 2.5 really doesn't.
Even more so, you can go over that and then just like, oh, we're gonna pay it off next year, and then you can just like bonuses. Really, you can very, very, very easily, work your way around performance bonuses when it comes to hitting the cap. It's really not hard for teams to do whatsoever. You see it in all salary cap sports. So yeah.
And that extra 1.5, it seems like a slam dunk, but it's actually a really nice insurance policy by Steve Yzerman in case something, and you're not ever going to root for something catastrophic to happen, but it's nice insurance that if something goes wrong, then we save a little bit of money. And it's really good asset management to keep the cap hit low initially to allow you to make room make moves in the offseason, but then Patrick Kane can thereby earn what he's really worth, let's be honest, come the start of the season. By just playing 10 games, you go up to $5.5 million, but it really doesn't hurt the caps all that much still. It's just such a slam dunk trade. And of course, Pierre LeBrun tweeting as we are talking here, full no trade clause, which we fully expected because he doesn't want to move. He wants to stay at home.
Maybe that was it too. Maybe, to go back to the original conversation in segment 1, maybe teams weren't willing to go full no movement, right? Maybe it was something that could have been in play as well.
But it leaves so much. So you cleared. Again, I'm going to reiterate, right, with the Jake Woolman thing. Nothing he does from here on out makes that trade look good in a vacuum because it's just poor asset management. But you took that $3.4 million that you took off the books and use that plus an extra $600K to give Patrick Kane a base deal.
Yeah.
So you're basically you've basically broke even. Yeah.
Right. But I'd still like more. That's
yeah. Absolutely. But you still have that room.
We already had, and we missed the playoffs. I'm looking for an improvement of the team. Right.
No, but that's what I'm trying to build to. Is I think that this is
for sure.
More moves are coming because he cleared that salary cap. I'm not justifying that trade for nothing.
Yeah,
but it does give him room to upgrade.
Maybe Jacob Trouba.
So let's talk about that in segment 3 of Lockdown Red Wings. I don't know when we're going to do rounds 2 through 7. It's going to be today. Might be a little bit of a longer episode because Jacob Trouba's not a short conversation either, dude. 3 episodes worth of content in 1 episode.
You're okay. Let's get to break and stop talking about it then, bud.
All right, Dad. Segment 3, Lockdown Red Wings podcast. Jacob Trouba, right? Reports were Saturday that it was a done deal. He was going to come to Detroit at 30% retained. So his $8 million cap hit would then become a $5.5 million cap hit with the Detroit Red Wings. And a lot of ruffled feathers, as I've learned it's ruffled, on social media about whether or not this would be a worthwhile addition for Jacob Trouba. Scotty, when you hear about this, and now that we've had a couple days to digest the idea of it, because then following reports were this isn't as a slam dunk as we thought it was going to be, bringing Jacob Trouba to the Detroit Red Wings. What are your thoughts on Jacob Trouba in Detroit at a 5.5 cap hit if the salary retention is true?
I think the biggest thing is that point that you made there where who knows if this is even still a thing, right? Who even knows this is happening. Everyone buckle up. This is happening, 48 hours ago. And now it's maybe maybe even not maybe this is even leading toward unlikely to happen now at this point. So we're talking about, a very, very, very hypothetical situation, at least at the time of this recording. But it was a big rumor over the weekend. And I think that my reaction was okay, what else? And I know that's kind of a slippery slope, and kind of what I said at the end when talking about Kane as well. But like this is a really fine line, and maybe it's just there's no line at all. Maybe this is just a really, really blurry line. But like I think this is a situation where if you brought Trouba in, it would be an improvement over, especially with the retainmentness, because that's a word of the trade. That like I think that this is you can pretty easily convince yourself and talk yourself into this being an improvement for the team, while also still not being just like thrilled that this is, like one of the maybe potentially only upgrades that we're going to make there, like at that position, especially, you know what I mean? Like, I think this is a really, really fine line to walk.
Yeah.
There are better ways to improve out there, but it is still an improvement.
Like, I mean, you said it there, right? Like, both can be true at the same time. It
sure.
doesn't move the needle a lot for me, and I want to preface by saying that first and foremost, it does not move the needle a lot for me. I think that I would still prefer Matt Roy, right? But the argument against that would be you'd have to give him like 6 years, where Trouba only has 2 years. I think Roy's worth it because I think he's very effective. But Trouba at 5.5 is a much more reasonable number. He would still become, until Seider signs his extension, the highest paid Red Wing on your team at 5 point, or highest paid defenseman, I should say, on your team. Yeah. Until again Seider signs that extension. But I think it's a much more reasonable number for him. If I gotta play Jacob Trouba defender, which I guess I will, I mean, he fits a lot of the criteria that Steve Yzerman likes in defensemen. Big, physical D-men. Of course, Yzerman likes his D-men who are good at skating as well, and I don't think Trouba's the most fleet of foot, but he's a big physical defenseman. He's 12th in the league in blocked shots. He and Keandre Miller faced the toughest deployments on the New York Rangers this last season, and those deployments were, according to Dobber Hockey, tougher than the deployments that Sherratt and Petrie got as well. Of course, no one came as close as Wollman and Seider, but still would have been second toughest on the Red Wings. Again, different teams, so it's hard to compare those apples to apples, but you get what I'm trying to say is he faced the toughest deployments on the Rangers with Keandre Miller. Now, that being said, he struggled in that area, but you're not putting him in the same deployments, I think, with the Detroit Red Wings necessarily. He's still, and that's, again, this is where both are true at the same time. He's still going to be getting tougher deployments with the Detroit Red Wings. Like, you bring Jacob Trouba in and you pair him with ideally Simon Edvinsson. Again, you think about the size of that pairing would be very attractive. And he is a locker room leader. I know we have a ton of those already, but the locker room leader would be a good mentor for Simon Edvinsson, especially for developing a mean streak from a guy like of Simon Edvinsson's size. But he may have that, but it's just he's going to be getting slightly tougher deployments. He'll be getting easier deployments is what I'm trying to say. He'll get easier deployments than with the Rangers, I think, but tougher deployments than what Sherratt and Petrie are getting. So it's going to also simultaneously make Trouba's life easier coming to the Red Wings, playing on, and I know he played mostly second pair minutes with the New York Rangers, but he'll make Seider's life easier by allowing Seider to open up a little bit more against easier competition, potentially unlocking a little bit of that offensive game we think he has, but also won't be as tough as the minutes he was thrown out there against with the New York Rangers. So I think that it is a win-win for kind of both in that degree, and I think, and I hate saying this, because I said this about Justin Holl, and I said it against Jeff Petrie, and I'm sorry I'm rambling. I said it about both those players, that coming here in a more sheltered role, slightly more sheltered role, they'll do better, and that didn't necessarily prove to be true. Jeff Petrie proved to me that he could be an effective third-pair defenseman, not necessarily a second pair, and clearly, if this is the route that Yzerman wants to go, there must be somewhere where we're agreeing on that Petrie thing, and Justin Holl played 38 games. So,
not bought out, by the way. I don't know if that was written down on the show sheet, but buyout window opened, Justin Holl still on the Wings.
Yes. Yep.
And that's worth noting.
So, He also had the second most time on the ice per game at 5-on-5, and it was the top penalty killer in minutes per game as well, while being a hardcore negative relative to his teammates in every analytical stat, Corsi, 4%, Fenwick. So again, it's like
All of them,
it's like they put him in tough positions and he wasn't up to the task. Can he be better with the Detroit Red Wings in a slightly more sheltered role? I want to say yes, but I've been proven wrong before. I'm open to it at 5.5, but again, it just would not move the needle a ton for me. It would definitely be one of those wait and see how it goes type things if it happens. Also, the return, like what are you going to give away? What's the trade going to look like is going to matter a lot to my perception of the trade. Too.
Yeah, I can't imagine, and I don't want to speak too soon. Obviously, we don't know, and this might not even happen at this point, like we said earlier. But I can't imagine in a trade that involves retaining money that the Wings would have to get rid of too terribly much. In general, that's usually not the case. But in terms of the fit on the ice, there really is a fit on the ice for him with the Wings, and that's again what makes this conversation so weird. There is a fit. There is a fit on the second pair. Again, like you said, I think next to Edvinsson is probably kind of the slam dunk, at least, in the summer, in July. That's kind of the slam dunk spot for him. But stuff will obviously move and kind of shuffle. I think, again, like maybe this conversation just ends with how it started, which is just like this is an improvement, and I think does make your blue line better. But at the same time, I think that there is an argument that I could hear for somebody to say that there is a better way to improve your blue line with the same amount of money you'd be spending on him.
Yep, absolutely agreed. Scotty, we're at 27 minutes. We got, 6 players picked by the Detroit Red Wings got to talk about? Might be 7. I think they had 2 7th-rounders. So let's dive into that real quick. The deeper we get into the draft, the less I'm going to have to say about each individual player, because the less I'll know about each individual player.
Except for the last pick. That might have to be a cult hero. The Wings' last pick might have to be a Locked On Wings like legend. Like that might have to be the guy.
We will be rooting for him to be sure. But in the second round, we talked obviously Michael Brandstad Nygaard on Friday's episode because we did a post first round. In the second round, the Red Wings took Max Plant out of the United States National Team Development Program. He is a center, according to Elite Prospects, 176 pounds, 5'11", shoots left. Actually, I think the first thing that stood out to me before even getting into this is they went real hard on the forwards this draft, and they asked, I think it was Chris Draper about it in the post, and he said, yeah, we've been taking a lot of defense these last few years, so we wanted to go a little bit more forward heavy. I'm paraphrasing heavily there, but that was what I inferred from what he did say. We've taken a lot of defense lately.
No, for sure. I think that's important though, because again, if you just look at, I'll leave names aside and just go strictly positions. You obviously have MBN, who was a wing, and then you have wing, center, goalie, defense, wing, defense. So they really did go heavily on the forwards, and again, Plant is, depending on where you look, wing, center, whatever. But a lot more forwards this year, I think, is the big thing that jumps out in the draft class as a whole. Fun prospect, a guy that some people had at one point earlier in the year, even kind of the very, very end of the first round, and kind of found himself there at 47 in the middle of the second round. So I think a guy that was also fun to talk about, just with the fact that he played for the U.S. Development League and whatnot. So I know, again, no issues. Everybody's happy on draft night. Who said that? Was that Boltman that said that quote? I really liked that. I think that's a good thing to keep in mind. But I obviously no issue with the class as a whole. And if you want to start with Max specifically, that was a guy that quite a few people were pretty big on at one point.
Yeah, I mean, he had 61 points in 51 games with the U18 team for the U.S. national team, and then the juniors version of the team that plays in the USHL, because they have 2 or 3 versions of the national development team, one that plays in the USAHL, one that plays international. He had 29 points in 25 games there. He is known for being a cerebral tactician, a playmaker, and it's implied at this point, a two-way forward. So definitely fits the mold that Steve Yzerman is going for with his forwards, wanting to become a better defensive team in the long run. And I like the idea of going right wing on the first pick, because I believe I heard that he may be listed as a center, but I believe he's probably going to end up being a left wing at higher levels, is what I remember hearing.
The Wings reported him as a left wing.
Right. So. And I like the idea of getting your power forward that can shoot really well on the right side in the first round, and then getting your playmaking cerebral guy on the left side, just really arming the winger depth that has been kind of suffering lately throughout this rebuild. They went hard on it. Also, fun fact, he is the son of Derek Plant, who played like 400 to 500 games in the NHL. So that's fun. Come a little bit of that nepotism that's been going around. TJ Ginla, Josh Doan, a lot of these guys these days are getting close to the NHL. It's crazy that Josh Doan and TJ Ginla are on the same team. But anyways, next up, the Red Wings took in the third round, 80th overall, Andre Beecher, one of the two. We'll figure it out one day. He is a center/wing, 6'1", 187 pounds. He's a little bit taller. He's a big, not taller. 6'1's not huge, but he definitely fits over the 6 foot profile. He's considered dynamic in his transition game and is a consistent contributor, and he has a high work ethic as well. So this last year he played with the Prince George Cougars of the WHL, 96 points in 58 games played, 19 points in 15 games played in the playoffs. So again, not a lot to talk about with these guys the deeper we get into the draft. This is a guy who also widely varied on the draft sheet. He went as high as 56 in Craig Button's and as low as 250 by FC Hockey. So, and that's what you get in a lot of these once you get deeper in the draft. Everyone has wildly different. But Bob McKenzie, I'm looking at McKean's. McKean's had him listed at 82. I just assumed it was Bob McKenzie. That's bad on me. But anything else to add on Andre
No,
Beecher?
I think, again, just kind of like the profile of defense and size from forwards as well is something that this organization continues to really drive home.
Yep. Absolutely, because and then we got our first plot twist of the night. They went goalie in the fourth round, their second fourth-round pick.
Big
Landon Miller.
Well, but I really like this one as well. Like, this is, we talk all the time, about like, yes, the Wings have two pretty legitimate goalie prospects in their pipeline right now, but goalie depth is something that can evaporate like that, dude, right? Like we've talked about it a lot over the last couple of years. This goalie depth that we thought we had at one point evaporated in front of our eyes in the span of 6 to 12 months. And so anytime you can, and like, this is a fourth round pick. He's obviously not gonna, immediately be even close to the same level as the other two guys. I'm just saying organizational goalie depth is never a bad thing.
Yeah, absolutely. He played for the Sioux Greyhounds, 889 save percentage. I know people are going to be like, oh, wow, that's not that impressive. But Chris Draper says he went and watched a few games and saw him play really well in those games. And, of course, like you just said, and like Steve Yzerman has said, you can't teach size. So they think that he has the raw talent to mold into a goalie down the stretch. And if it doesn't work out, he's a fourth-round pick, and you still have Kosa and Augustine.
Right.
To really carry the workload. It's kind of one of those things, like, you almost always want to take a goalie in every draft, no matter what your goalie situation is, because that can change in such a heartbeat. So I saw they took a goalie in the fourth round. I was like, okay. They took Trey Augustine last year in the second round, and everyone was like, well, they have Kosa, what the heck? And then Augustine turns it on with Michigan State, and everyone's like, now we got two really good goalie prospects. So if Landon Miller turns into a really good goalie prospect, we'll be thrilled. Anyways, I'm rambling too long. We still got more players to get to, and we're already over time. John Whipple is the next one, fifth round, 144th overall. First defenseman the Red Wings have taken in the draft. Is a good name. Left-hand shot, described as a defensive defenseman and a heavy hitter, but also a mobile defenseman. So he uses his size to his advantage, throws his body around, plays smart in the defensive zone, but he's a good skater as well. By Tony Ferrari had him ranked as high as 58, but he also comes in as low as 161, according to McKean's. So another guy that, again, you're going to get this with a lot of these guys that vary, but kind of the similar mindset with goaltending. Like, just because you got a lot of depth there doesn't mean you're going to pass on it if you view this player as the best available.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. And another example of the Red Wings taking size.
Yes. NCDP as well. You know, that really
they
taking advantage.
A lot. 3 or 4 guys from there this draft.
And people have been talking about how they keep taking players out of Sweden, which is very true. They keep taking players who have played in Sweden at the very least, maybe not native, but take advantage of the fact that 45 minutes down the road is Plymouth, and that's where the national development team plays, and they clearly are this year. And he's committed to play in the University of Minnesota, so you're going to be able to have a little bit easier access to watching this Detroit Red Wings prospect play. Charlie Forsland is next up. He is a forward, a winger to be precise, 6'3", 212 pounds, already a bigger boy. Over 212 pounds is impressive for an 18-year-old, even though, you know, a little heavier because you're taller, but there's a lot of 6'3" guys who are like 180. So that's impressive to already be there. Heavy shooter, power forward, is going to join. I think this is the player that's joining Mora, the player that MBN is leaving. So the Red Wings trust that program in Mora. I think Iserman or Draper mentioned that. I listened to both on my way to hockey today, so I'm getting those two conversations confused. But this is a player, I believe it was Draper, said he was on his way to watch a different player play, and then at the last second was told by Hakan Andersson to hop on a train and go watch this guy. I think it seems to be implied they think this kid can be a little bit of a hidden gem. He's a little overlooked because of where he was playing in his draft class.
I'm gonna trust the Wings front office in that scenario. Yeah, those are always super fun to keep tabs on for sure. And again, another huge player.
Right. And finally, we got our last two. Austin Baker, another winger, 6 foot, 192 pounds, shoots left. He was taken 203rd in the 7th round by the Red Wings. And he is known most significantly for his sheer speed and his penalty-killing ability. Going to Michigan State University, so he'll be easy to watch.
Absolutely love a PK specialist, man, especially in the 7th. We'll gladly take it.
Right. And he's going to Michigan State University, another USNTDP product. So we'll be able to watch him very easily play along with Red Wings prospects Red Savage and Trey Augustine. So it'll be really fun for us here, even though Scotty hates Michigan State.
Lastly, we have the last pick and the best pick in the entire draft.
Somebody who may or may not secretly be our child in Fisher Scott. His first name is Fisher, not his last. But we're rooting for this kid to become an NHL superstar just simply because he's a combination of our names.
He is going to be the greatest player to ever grace the ice. Let's just make that abundantly clear.
He better wear number 2 when he makes it to the Red Wings. That's all I'm saying. That's the number I've been wearing. I wore it because
I didn't wear 2 when I played baseball, though.
Well, I don't care what you wore.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
I wore 2 because of Yuri Fisher.
Yuri Fisher.
And he can carry the tradition.
There you go.
He was taken 208th overall in the 7th round, the final pick for the Red Wings. Defenseman, left shot, 6'2", 179 pounds. Hey, my point exactly, right? 180 pound, 6'2" player. So to be 212 pounds at 6'3" is impressive, assuming it's muscle. But I'm gonna go out on a limb and think that he probably was in shape for the draft. 33 points, played in the USHL. He's going to Colorado College this next year. There's not much to break down with him other than just a banger of a name.
Yeah, elite name.
Scotty, do you have any final thoughts on Kane, Trouba, the draft?
Honestly, no. I think we covered pretty much everything. Obviously, a really long show, but had a lot to go over. I think the biggest thing now is happy free agency day, everyone, and it's going to be a whirlwind. It's going to be really crazy. I'm gonna watch the ESPN or maybe NHL Network. I don't know, one of the free agency shows that they have, and let's have a week. We'll be here every single day this week, breaking it down, and hopefully the Wings can add some pieces to get us over the hump this year. But yeah, I think just free agency starting is the next bit, is now where all of the attention shifts to, and I think getting Kaner under contract before allowing him to get to free agency was a big deal.
We are in F5 season, guys. F5 season. We're going to be hitting refresh a lot. Honestly, I'm impressed we kept this to 40 minutes. It could have been so much longer. Pat ourselves on the back. Scotty, We ball.
We ball, baby.
We'll be back with a new episode tomorrow, hopefully recapping a couple of big-time free agent signings. So stay tuned for that. Same time, the same place. It's your team every day.
Every day.